is Sportscasters Anonymous, a weekly podcast about sports, all sports, MLB, the NBA, the NFL, the NHL, collegiate football, and collegiate basketball. But there's more. We'll even talk about sports video games, sports movies. It's all here. You're listening to Sportscasters Anonymous on the Random Chatter Network, broadcasting to the globe from Jacksonville, Florida. This is Don and Chip.
What's up, everybody? My name is Don. He's Chip. We are Sportscasters Anonymous. We thank you for joining us today. This is episode 9, recorded on June 14th, 2020. We're looking forward to all the news and discussion that we have to bring you this week. We got a lot to go over. Chip, man, how's it going?
Going well. It's been a busy week for myself, but I'm ready to talk about sports.
Sports, and the sports world is returning slowly but surely. We had some golf today. We had some NASCAR today. We're starting to see a little bit of return to the sports world there. Why don't you go ahead and tell the folks out there how they can contact us?
Absolutely. So you can contact us via email. Mine is chip@randomchatter.com, or you can contact Don at his email, which is don@randomchatter.com. You can look us up on Twitter. Our handle is @sportcastanon, ANON. You can join us on Discord under the Random Chatter, which shares sports and pop culture talk. You can support us on Patreon and buy our stuff at randomchatter.com/store.
Awesome. I want to point out real quick before we jump into our stuff this week. Last week, we said we were going to discuss some of the topics and news regarding college athletes getting paid, NCAA athletes getting paid. We had so much news this week, we've actually put it off. So we're thinking maybe we'll address that issue next week, Chip?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at this point, it's not something that's new. It's something that's kind of been over time. So it's something that when we get a chance, we'll definitely talk about. We can plan to do it next week. It just, this week, there was a lot that happened in the sports world that we wanted to cover. So we're going to try to hit all of it. And so we're going to tailor that for another week.
Awesome. So let's get right into it, man. We got some NFL updates on tap. Go ahead and kick us off. What you got for us?
Yeah, so the first thing I got was there was a report out there that the Cleveland Browns are going to create a mega deal extension for Myles Garrett. And my question for you is, because for those that don't know, Myles Garrett is a defensive end for the Cleveland Browns, who got suspended indefinitely at the end of last year because he took off his helmet and tried to hit the Steelers quarterback with his helmet and caused a melee at the end of the game. My question for you with this, would you sign him to an extension knowing all of his turmoil past that he's had? Because the taking off the helmet isn't the first incident that this guy has had. So would you give him the money that they're thinking of giving him, which is in the ballpark range of the $22-23 million deals? So they're going to try to make him the top pass rusher. Now, he is a really good player.
He's one of the best when he's not in trouble.
Are you going to invest that money in someone that, because that's a big thing in any type of contract, is they don't want to put money into someone that has the ability to get suspended indefinitely, especially after what happened this past season.
I think, honestly, somebody like that, I'm hoping he learns from his lessons. He's only been in the NFL a couple of years, and I would say Myles Garrett is one of the elite players. So they want to pay him elite money. With that being said, I would think that for the next contract or contract extension, I think there's probably going to be some sort of verbiage put in there addressing that situation. You're going to pay him big money, but you're also going to protect your interests. So if he violates a decency clause or something like that, they're probably going to put something in there that would allow the contract to get voided, is what I think they would be looking at.
Okay. Would you, if you were Myles Garrett, would you sign something that pays you that much with that that type of clause in there. Because you would hope that he would learn from his lessons, but I'll be honest, when you watch him play and it comes out, and when he plays, he's kind of a hothead. He uses his like anger and emotions when he plays, which is what makes him such a vicious, pass rusher, is because he uses that intensity that he has
But it
towards
also
it. So
gets him in trouble.
It also gets him in trouble.
Right.
So like he only played 10 games last year and he had 10 sacks in 10 games, which is,
I told you, elite.
great. Yeah. So he got suspended for the last 6 games of the season. So it's tough. I know he did it against the Steelers, who's a division rival. So they in the article, they interviewed the Steelers coach Mike Tomlin, and they've interviewed other Steelers players who are not necessarily a fan of him, and basically say that they would not give him the contract. So that's why I posed the question to you, as a non-biased supporter or non-biased viewer of the NFL. Would you spend the money on someone with like that?
Here's like I said, if I'm the owner and I'm working out that deal, I would, for his play on the field, he deserves big money, huge money. Like I said, I put him in elite category. But you have the issues with the past. So if I'm writing the contract, I would put something in there that allows the franchise, should he get into another incident like that, to go, look, we can't, you represent the organization, we're paying you a lot of money, but we're not going to pay this kind of money if you can't take to the field because you're always in trouble. Now, if they present a contract like that to Garrett, if Garrett can live up to the expectation, he'll take the contract. He'll realize the positions he's in. If he goes, you know what? No, that's an unfair deal. There shouldn't be language like that in the contract. That tells you something else about his character. It means he hasn't really learned from the situation.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I don't know if I would personally. They have when you look at the team as a whole, and you can never look at it in a bubble, but if you look at the rest of the guys on the team, I think it would be hard to give him that much money, especially when you're paying Olivier Vernon $16 million, and he's your other end of the defense end, and you have Nick Chubb, you have Baker Mayfield, you have Denzel Ward, you have all these other star players that they have on the team. You have Odell Beckham, you have I'm spacing on the other wide receiver that they have that you're paying all this money to. It's kind of hard to try to fit him into the salary cap and still have a competitive team. So I would probably I probably wouldn't pay him like the top level, but I'd pay him probably like maybe 18 or 19 million instead of the 23, 24 that they're going to give him. But that's just,
so you would make him the top guy, but you'd put him in the top tier.
I put him in the top tier for sure, but I wouldn't make him like a top guy. Maybe give him like the most money, but spread it over more years. Because they'll do that as well with contracts. They won't necessarily get the highest annual average, and they'll get the most money over
that's
like
also
a
like
7
a cap
or 8
decision
year.
too. So
yeah, so that's more like a
out.
cap favorable decision.
Mhm.
But moving on from that, so the another interesting thing that I read about this week was the Broncos, and not just the ownership, like the players came out and said that they want the virtual meetings to be instituted every offseason.
So you want it as a permanent thing.
Yeah, they wanted it as a
Cool.
permanent thing, which is the first kind of sport to come out and use something that was like a necessity during the quarantine time, that came out and said, hey, we want this change implemented all the time. They were skeptical about the Zoom meetings to begin with, but then after they went through it, they were excited to see everyone. They were excited to talk to coaches and update on progress. It's like I said, it's the first like positive to come out of the pandemic as far as sports when it comes to that, like positive change, I should say, not just positive. That like I think about this, you're gonna see a lot of things from the pandemic, the way we used to do things, change because we experienced it with the quarantine and it was successful, and now you're gonna see a lot of teams and other organizations and sports implement that new technology into it. So this thought of these virtual meetings, I think, is going to not necessarily stay with the NFL, but I think it is going to be something that's going to be implemented for coaches to talk to new players, get an idea of their teams and where they're at in the off season, maybe virtual meeting with a potential free agent. I think that the NFL is going to capitalize on something like that. What do you think in terms of them bringing in this virtual side to the game?
Well, like you said, with COVID and everything going on, the landscape changed. Now, what's amazing is the technology has been there for a while. You and I deal with this type of technology all the time. So it's not like for a lot of organizations in sports and whatnot, they weren't using it. It was like a big revelation. And then they finally realized, well, hey, there's a benefit to this. Will all teams use it? Probably not. But the teams that want to use it, I think it's actually a good thing for them, like you said, because even during the off season, instead of a phone call, whether you're discussing where your standing is in the off season or there's concerns in the off season, normally what you do is you would make the phone call and then you'd fly out to the team facility because not everybody lives in town. Now you can keep those conversations and whatnot constantly going, but the advantage of being able to still have a face-to-face conversation, even though you're not there, you can see the emotion or gauge the reaction. You know what I mean? You can see the body language. And I mean, it'll be great too for other situations, like, as far as even getting the playbook out. I mean, there's so many different things that the teams can use during the off season, because unlike the regular season, the biggest thing is you don't have all the players living together in the same city. So it is still a way to have that group communication face to face.
Yeah.
Without flying everybody in. So if anything, I think it makes it more of a convenience and makes it maybe easier to plan, where we go, well, we don't do this because we have to have all the players assembled. Well, okay, well, now you can do a virtual and for some of the things still get the point across or still have that open discussion.
So going off that point is right now the way the CBA is written is, once the season ends, there is a period where coaches can't talk to their players, coaches can't interact with their players because they feel there's some type of unfair advantage when they do this. If coaches are talking to possible free agents or they're talking to players in that sense. I mean, they can. I don't know strictly what the exact rules are, but I know that they can't have any formal discussions, or they can't.
There's like a blackout period for a while.
Blackout period.
Mm-hmm.
So having these virtual meetings, they could have a team meeting virtually and people are at the luxury of their house, and they may change that where there is no such thing as a blackout period, or they manipulate it in a way that coaches can still contact their players, or trainers can contact their players and say, hey, how's your off-season program going? And it might make them more ready to come into the training camp that they have, which, talking about training camp, I'm gonna skip down a couple of bullet points that I have there.
No, go ahead.
So the new CBA that they signed that states that all teams will report to training camp at the same time. It used to be that they were required to come to training camp 15 days before their preseason opener, but now it's 40. They all have to be there by July 28th, which is about 47 or 48 days before the week 1 of the regular season.
Yeah.
So that's mostly the teams that are playing on September 13th, or the ones playing on September 14th. The teams that are not going to be reporting on July 28th are the Chiefs, the Texans, the Cowboys, and the Steelers.
Hall of Fame game and Thursday night opener?
Correct. So they would be July 25th. Or 25th. Yeah, July 25th. The Cowboys and Steelers, which is the Hall of Fame game, they're going to report July 22nd, which would be 15 days before that game.
Right.
So those are some of the changes with the training camp and the new CBA. Like before, it used to be all different times. It was 15 days before, and so they tried to make it a little bit more fair. Like everybody's got to report this date. So they're still planning on doing that. They're not going to change that at all with the whole COVID situation. So they're gonna have social distancing, and there's some other like little nuances with it, which one of the coaches, the Ravens, John Harbaugh, says that it's impossible for them to follow all these guidelines. And I read some of them; they're pretty ridiculous. Like when they're out on the field and they're practicing, they all have to wear masks. I mean, can you imagine linemen wearing masks or a quarterback wearing a mask trying to call out a play? Like some of that stuff just like they're like, how much of we are actually going to be able to implement this stuff versus what's actual practical like application of what's really going to happen. I can't see.
Well, again, they're trying to the league's trying to address all the concerns as well. They should, but Harbaugh obviously pulls up valid points as well.
Yeah, like so, like some of it's like
like for example, for some teams it'll be worse than others, but for our team here in the local market, the Jags, can you see them in July or August when it's like in the 90s plus degrees outside, outdoors practicing with a face mask on?
Yeah, I can't see it for like even when the Eagles, like July and August, it's humid as hell up there. The humidity level is high, and like I've been to training camp up there, and it's no fun picnic. So for them to be wearing these masks, running around, eventually the masks are just going to get too sweaty, and they're not going to do the job that they're supposed to do anyways. Like you're not supposed to wear the mask when you're working out. They lose their effectiveness. So to have them work out, like it's just, and that's just one thing. There's a lot of other little things, like when they go to eat lunch, they all have to stay 6 feet apart from each other. Like the facilities aren't big enough for everybody to eat lunch and still stay 6 feet apart from each other. So
I've seen some of the training camp facilities. Yeah, it's not like they're in the stadium, you know.
yeah, exactly.
They're usually at a college
They're
campus or something like that. It's a small area.
they're gonna bring lunch on the field and set up tables, and then it's supposed to be like they have to spend an hour to 2 hours cleaning the facility down before anybody can use it next. There's a lot of like things that they're like, oh, these are great ideas in theory that are going to keep our players safe, but when you actually practically think about them, it's like a head scratcher.
I want to. I'll throw one out there because for work, we have to wear a mask at work. We have masks provided to us by the company. You know, they're washable. They're cotton, durable, but they need to be washed. But they get hot inside. I would think for athletes, the answer to that question, I really honestly think you need somebody like Under Armour to make the mask. You know, like an athletic sportswear company have you ever worn some of the Under Armour equipment?
Oh, I wear them all the time.
Okay. Good stuff, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Like the stay dry stuff, and it whisks the sweat away, and the stuff is wonderful. I really think here's a chance. Like, if you want to make a contribution, Under Armour could maybe solve the face mask problem part of that.
I can't imagine Under Armour type masks. Like that to me, that to me is like I get it and I understand it. Like it would be a really cool idea, but I laugh at that idea because it's like you have this big huge sports industry that are gonna make these masks and like make athletic masks. Like I don't know, like coming from a medical thing, like I've never heard of such a thing of like athletic masks that you're gonna put over your face. Like it's gonna change a completely new dynamic. So
yeah, well, you
it'll
know what?
be interesting how it goes, but
in this day and time, I wouldn't doubt if somebody, you know what, I need to copyright that idea right now or trademark that sucker.
like yeah, absolutely. Like you can make a killing, like sell it to the NFL for billions of dollars, and you're good. So I did want to move on from that because I think that when it actually happens, the one thing I did want to mention before we move on is June 26th is the last day for virtual meetings, even though they're not reporting till a month later. The virtual team meetings are supposed to end on June 26th. So after that, everything's going to be text messages and
Back to
individual
the norm,
meetings.
so to
Yeah,
speak.
back to the
Yeah.
normal. They're not going to have quote unquote they would have had OTAs and all this other stuff now. So most of the NFL facilities are now open anyways, and players are allowed to come in without coaches and train with trainers and get no formal like on-field work or coaching. But they would have had OTAs before that, so that's what the virtual meetings were for, was to kind of go over the
Just
business
keep
side of
everybody in the loop.
OTAs.
Well, because there was a
Yeah.
lot going on, and you had to keep all the
So
players constantly updated. So, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, props to them. Teams liked it, so they did something right.
absolutely. So
Moving on.
So Pete Carroll came out, who's the coach of the Seahawks this week, and came out and said that he wished that he had interviewed Colin Kaepernick, and we all know Colin Kaepernick and everything that goes along with that.
Yes.
So I found it interesting because he also said that he wanted that they had made a call about Colin Kaepernick, and it always comes up every year when a quarterback goes down or is not performing, because of Kaepernick's track record as far as playing in a Super Bowl and the super talented quarterback, and then he never got signed to a free agent deal. My question for you, and I'm going to stay away from. I want to put this strictly in a football sense. Do you think that because he's been away for, I think it's been like 4 years, do you think that if a team were to sign him, that he would be a good signing as far as his football talent? And B, do you think that he would still be able to play at the high level, being away from the game for so long?
Yes, I do. If you look, and we go, Cap gets brought up every year now, regardless, right? Every year,
Absolutely.
for one reason or another. He looks like he's staying in shape, number one. And number two, here's a guy that hasn't taken a snap in like 4 years, which means he hasn't been sacked, he hasn't been hit. If the athleticism is still there, and it would be fair, it definitely would be fair to give him a shot, bring him on the field, put him through the gauntlet like you would any other quarterback looking for a spot on the roster. If the athleticism is still there, if he's still on point, sign him. Everything else surrounding it, like you said, we're not going to get into it. Purely from a football standpoint, the guy proved he could play. So I say give him a shot.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I don't think it would hurt to try him out and give him a shot.
And
I think
just for an example, even though the situation was different, how long was Michael Vick away from football for before he came back?
It was 18 months.
18 months. Okay. 18 months, 4 years. Okay. Obviously, double the time, but still, he was away from the game completely.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a similar situation, but it's different. I mean, Michael Vick was in jail. He wasn't doing workouts. Colin Kaepernick's still been doing workouts, still throwing a football.
But what I'm saying is you're not in that system. Like, you can work out all you want, but unless you're running routes or throwing passes or whatever your position is, there is going to be some rust. But I honestly think he can go.
I think he can compete. I don't think he will be the quarterback that he was 4 years ago. I think the one thing that happened with Michael Vick is he came in, but he was a backup for a year before he started. So he could get back into the pace of the game. He could get back into all this other stuff. I think that if they bring Kaepernick back, they may do something similar where they sign him as a backup. I personally don't think Kaepernick wants to be a backup. I think he wants to be a starter, just like any normal person would want to be. But I think that he would struggle mightily with the speed of the game and all that, and relearning.
Changed since he's been gone,
and it changed. Yeah, so I think he would struggle from that standpoint. Do I think that he would not be? I think he would be a bad signing? No, I think he would be a good signing. I think he would be an elite backup quarterback that has starter experience, who can fill in for a starter or potentially beat out the starter.
So what do you do? Do you sign him on a 1-year deal and be like, you know what? Let's see if he still has it. He has it. Sign him on a 1-year deal because you probably already have a starter, and then figure it out from there.
Correct. I would probably sign him on a 2-year deal with an option for the second year, so they can either refute the option, and then or pick it up to sign him for the next year and then renegotiate it. I at that point, I think that would suffice and make everybody happy. And if he performs and he does everything he's supposed to, I think that would work out fine. But I don't want to spend too much time on this because, like I said, we have a lot to cover.
Sure.
We're going to
move on to the NBA, man.
Yeah, because I really want to talk about this. This whole thing is starting to make me not happy. I'm almost as angry about it as you are with the MLB at this point.
Oh, don't worry. I've been keeping up with the updates, and I started grinding my teeth, and I went, oh, here we go again.
So, like, they all agreed for this comeback to play. They had it all in place. They had everything worked out. And the players came out this week and they were like, well, we're not happy that we're going to be living in a bubble for 53 days.
Or more.
For the most part. Or more. I mean, depending on how far you go. But
yeah,
for the most teams.
Yeah.
For most teams, it's 53 days that they're going to be living in a hotel with meals catered, everything given to them. They don't want to be sequestered and not able to go out and do what they want. Like, their family members are going to be able to stay with them, but they have to stay with them. Like, and so they had a conference call, I believe it was on Friday, where they had all these players, they had hundreds of players come in and talk, and the one voice that kept coming up and saying things and trying to get support for players not to show up to the return was Kyrie Irving, who is out for the season and isn't going to play no matter what. He can either show up or not show up. That makes no difference if he shows up or he doesn't show up because he's not playing. So he's trying to get a lot of players, like high marquee players, to say, no, I'm not coming because of the fact that I have to live in a bubble. And he's trying to get support for them to basically just not come back to play, or to get teams to not come back to play. And I like it to me, it irks me because everybody agreed on it. Like, this was one of the first deals to agree on a return season, and everything was in place. And now you're coming out and just trying to create turmoil. Like, go play the game. It's 2 months of your life to just sit there and get waited on hand and foot and then go play basketball. Like, is going out and partying that big of a deal that you can't wait 2 months to do it? Like,
well, in their defense, because I've been reading it in the news and I've been following Twitter and the various news outlets and whatnot. So the part about not being happy about being in a bubble, one, they knew what they were getting into. Like you said, that the league said, this is what we're going to do. And they went, oh, okay. That's, it's not like they had no idea what was going to happen, where they were just going to told you're playing and that's it. Number two, part of the issue that they have is there are still some concerns about COVID, and the NBA saying, well, we're trying to set up a system how some personnel will be closer to the players than other personnel, basically the people taking care of their needs and whatnot. The families may not have to stay with them the whole time. They can come and go. Well, if they come and go, they're talking about being in a bubble. Is it really possible to actually like be in a bubble without any concern of COVID coming into that? I mean, you can't, with that many personnel, you can't really, you know what I mean? It's difficult to put them in a but another issue that I shouldn't say issue. One of the things that came up with some of the players is dealing with what's happening in our country now. Some feel that because of what's going on, they should go ahead and play basketball. The other side feels that because of what's going on, they shouldn't be playing basketball. They should be out in the public or out supporting their causes. And you can't do that in a bubble, is what they're saying. So that leaked into everything else that Kyrie was throwing out there. So
And
there,
I can understand that.
yes. So it's tough. It's a tough call. I think the players know what they were getting into. If they don't want to play, okay. The other concern, what they're worried about, is the way that the CBA in the contract is negotiated with the league. Is they're afraid that if they get to something where, hey, playing in this bubble is not going to work, we're just going to have to cancel the rest of the season. The NBA is is I think the only league really that has, because of extraordinary circumstances, like COVID or whatnot, if they're they can cancel the CBA, and they have to negotiate a new one. And now we get back to the same old problem. If they can't agree to finish playing on a season under the agreement that the NBA has, they can invoke, I can't remember what it's called. They have a clause for it and it cancels out the CBA. Now the players are worried, oh shoot, because a lot of people now feel if they don't, this is going to lead into a lockout for next year. And it's just snowballing from there.
Yeah, I can't see that. That's like the worst case scenario. I can't see it coming to that. I honestly think that this, while you're gonna have disgruntled players, but once they get there, they start practicing and they start doing all this other stuff. I think it's gonna go off pretty well. I mean, you look at other leagues like the soccer leagues that all came back. You look at some of the other sports that came back, like NASCAR and stuff like that, and there hasn't been much talk about COVID and players getting COVID or the risks from it. Like they're just going out and playing and doing what they love to do. And I think that, I mean, could you? It would be tough. It would be absolutely tough to see, like, I don't know, like Ben Simmons or Joel Embiid just say, I'm not showing up for the reasons that we mentioned. Like that, the league would take a huge hit by that. What I mean, people would understand, but at the same time, like you're gonna have fans that are gonna be angry. You're gonna have other players that are gonna be angry. Like, well, I'm risking. I'm playing, going out there and play. Like, why aren't you? Like I could see a lot of blowback because of that. And again, I still agree with, like, I would agree with a lot of the issues or the reasons why they would do it, but I think at this point you've already agreed to the agreement. Just stick to the agreement, and like now it's like you agreed to something and now you're just trying to back out of it. Like you're trying to get a lot of people together to just like, oh, well, you want to do this because we don't, like, I don't know. It's just, it's a tough situation, and I think that
I'll just say in the back of my mind, I'm just sitting there hoping that all sides, and the NBA has had good dialogue with the Players Association and the broadcasters and everything they need to do to pull it off. And I'm hoping that this doesn't go off track, because if it goes off track, it's going to get ugly like baseball. And it's unfortunate, because we were singing the song and dance earlier that, man, it looks like the NBA has got it put together. You know, they gave it thought, they figured it out. Hey, look at this. This is the model. And now we're getting to the end and it's like, oh shoot, here we go.
Yeah, and I think that's my biggest fear, is I don't want it to turn into a Major League Baseball situation.
But we'll leave baseball alone for a few more minutes anyways.
Yeah, I want to get to that. I don't want to shortchange that. So let's move on.
Yep.
I put in here, and I want to go really quickly through it. They announced the NBA draft, especially with all the dates and everything, is going to take place on August 25th. Not the draft itself, but the lottery picking is going to take place on August 25th. So this is the second year that they're going to do this new lottery system, where they're picking, they're giving more teams that are lower standings more opportunity to move up. I don't know if you saw the draft lottery last year. I did. I actually thought it was really cool. I call this the hinky lottery, because it's essentially because Sam Hinkie made it. He was a GM for the Sixers, made it cool to tank. because his philosophy was, why be mediocre and get a mediocre draft pick when we can just sell all our players and lose the majority of our games, get a high draft pick, and then start picking first or second overall for a few years and acquiring draft assets to then build a team based off of young players that we can sign to these mega deals and max contracts and have them for years and have a like quote unquote dynasty, rather than getting midline players and, you know, playing Russian roulette with who's going to pan out and who's not. Like, you're not going to always pick a Giannis at number 12 or 14 whenever he was picked. You may get more of like a mediocre role player who's going to be on the backup, and then you have to go out and try to sign free agents, and then you're spending a lot of money on free agents rather than getting all these rookie or second year players that come in and light it up. So do you like how they did the new lottery, or do you think they should go back to the way the old way was?
I'm cool with it. I when they did it last year, I was reading up on the news on it, whatnot. I don't have any problem with it. I mean, and what I can tell you is that the Knicks are looking good for this year.
Well, they were looking good for it last year, and they still got a really bad draft. Like, they didn't get a top one. They didn't get the Zion Williamson like they wanted.
Yeah, I know.
So they number 2, and they got his running mate RJ Barrett. So,
but I guess on the flip side is if based on the way the Knicks have played the past few seasons, they're my team. I love them. All right, so I get a pass for saying this. Even if they got the number 1 pick, they would probably find a way to screw it up. Okay,
that's true.
So it's been so many years of mismanagement now. Honestly, I love them to death, but just the choosing has been awful. So it's almost like, and I mean, the media would turn it into a joke. Oh, the Knicks won the number 1 pick in the lottery, and I'd be like, oh, great, that guy's career is over. You know, so.
At least you recognize the reality of it.
Yeah. Hey, man, I might have bias, but I'm not unrealistic. You know, I recognize it.
Another interesting story that came out of the NBA was so Michael Jordan, who owns or partially owns the Hornets, Charlotte Hornets, came out and basically told them that he wants them to be more like Mike. So we talked about The Last Dance and how Michael Jordan was in practice and calling out his teammates and, you know, getting in his teammates' head and using a lot of derogatory terms and getting on his teammates when they didn't play well. So he came out and said to his players to call out his teammates, to make them more accountable for their actions, you know, criticize them, make them uncomfortable, because he basically was making the point, like, when you go and play a game, you're not comfortable, you're going to be uncomfortable, you're going to have other teams saying all this stuff, so why not practice the way you're going to play? And I remember when I was a kid and I was in soccer, my soccer coach pulled up a quote from Michael Jordan, and he said basically the same thing, like practice, and it boiled down to practice the way you're going to play. If you're going to play a certain way, then practice that way so that you're prepared for it when it happens in a game. And I wanted to get your opinion on whether you thought that this was a good strategy to tell your players, because Michael Jordan still believes that it'll make the bond between him and his their teammates stronger. Mm-hmm. But you see a lot of Michael Jordan's old teammates who basically did not like the way he handled things. So I want to get your thoughts on whether you think that going in there and talking trash and criticizing your teammates if they miss a jump shot or they do a bad pass and getting on them and making them feel uncomfortable is a good way to go about talking or practicing.
It's a touchy subject. In any team, you have what's the word I'm looking for? A leader in a locker room, right? Mm-hmm. That's a guy that'll always pump you up. That's usually the guy that's a straight shooter. Like how many football teams, man, you drop a pass, you know, your team's leader, he's going to rag on you, but he won't be degrading you. But he's, you know, come on, I know you can do better. You know, we worked on this, and pump you up. So to some extent, be like Mike, yes. but there has to be a line. You know, you need to. Do I feel like you should practice like the way you're going to play? Well, absolutely, because then it's just second nature. And for everything that teammates of Michael Jordan had, where they're like, well, Mike did this and Mike said that and Mike did that. How many of them said, oh, yeah, by the way, I want to thank him for the 6 rings that I have?
You're not wrong.
Obviously,
Yeah.
obviously something worked. They're saying how Jordan was degrading them or demeaning them or you know, call them out on a missed shot or whatever the case. They won 6 titles. If you didn't take a year off, it probably would have been 7. So strictly from a sports aspect, sounds to me like it worked.
Yeah, I mean, you're never gonna please everybody,
No.
and you have to be like you said, you have to be a leader in the locker room. And if you have to be that person that that teams hate, you'd rather them hate you than hate your other teammates. So there's
If they're all
there's a
hating
lot of,
on you, then everyone's focused.
correct, yeah. So
Yeah.
there's a philosophy in out there that a lot of coaches will say like, oh, if they hate me, then they don't have time to hate each other, and it'll bring the team closer. So coaches will work them extra hard, or they will give them unrealistic tasks and have the focus of the frustration and the focus of players' agitation towards the coaches that'll give the players a stronger bond because they will have something to bond over and say like, man, our coach is dogging us, like we can't take this anymore, and it'll bring the team themselves closer and have them act more as a team. And a lot of times they will realize that what the coach is doing, and the team benefits from it. So sometimes it can be a player, sometimes it can be a coach, but I think that it's not a bad way to go about a practice. Like, yes, you're going to ruffle somebody's feathers. You're going to say something that someone's not going to like. You got to kind of be a little bit respectful with what you're saying and what you're doing. But if you're going to experience it out on the court in a game 7 of an NBA Finals, you want to be prepared for that. You don't want to get through a game 7 of the NBA Finals and get your cage rattled because someone said something and now you're not focused on it. You know, if you've heard it before, you're gonna be like, okay, I've heard that before. It's all right, whatever, and then you're gonna go up and make a jump shot.
And seriously, if you have a teammate that's rattling your cage like that, and like you said, if you're in the NBA Finals, whatever your teammate said to you is going to be bland compared to what the other team is going to say to you when you get on the court. Yeah, I mean, you know how they are. You watch basketball, I watch basketball, you hear it all the time, man. These guys talk serious trash. You're going to get it 10 times worse than you'll get it from your own teammate.
Like we said earlier in one of our other podcasts, when they actually have to play this return season, they don't have fans, and you're going to be able to hear everything on the court. They're going to have someone on that buzzer button to bleep out every other word that they say. So
it's going to happen.
But moving on to our fun topic that we've been talking about for the last few weeks that keeps monopolizing our conversation, and rightfully so. The Major League Baseball, they made somewhat, but yet no progress this week. They still have not come to a deal. The owners have come out with a few more proposals. The union has come out with proposals, but neither of them can agree. The players are still stuck on the fact that they want to get paid their prorated salaries, but the the owners, I believe the latest one they came out with was a 78 game season where they get paid about 80% of their prorated salaries for those games, as well as an expanded playoffs and all this other stuff. It seems like the MLB owners are trying to give different proposals. I don't think they're ever going to cave on giving them their full prorated salaries. But it came out with a lot of different articles where basically they were saying that the owners are not really changing the deal. They're just manipulating it. Like, they're not changing the whole gross money that they're paying out. They're just manipulating it based off the game. So instead of doing an 83 game season at 75%, they're doing a 78 game season at 80%. So like they're giving less games, but then giving a higher percentage, which is not changing the amount of money that the players are getting, or that the amount of money that the owners are paying out. Another thing that I read about this, which I thought was quite interesting. So the MLB commissioner basically came out and said, we are 100% going to have baseball. And in the agreement that they signed back in March, and I didn't know this before, and I read this week. In the agreement, it says that the commissioner can dictate how many games that they are going to play without a agreement with the players. So the commissioner can set a schedule and say, we're playing these games on these dates. You have to show up. So, and if they don't show up, they don't get paid, essentially, is what it is. So the final proposal that the owners are going to send out, and it's going to create animosity amongst the players because they don't want it, and it's going to create an even bigger situation when they go to renegotiate the contract in a year, is they're going to put a 48-game season where they're going to say, we're going to pay you your full prorated salaries for 48 games. And the players are going to be like, it's going to give them very little amount of money, but they're going to say, hey, we're giving you guys baseball. We're going to have a 48 game season, which is so short in the life of baseball when you go from 162 games to a fourth of that. I don't know. What do you want to talk about it? I've said a lot of information. I've sent you a lot of articles during the week. I know this is like really irking you. I'll be honest. The NBA has jumped the baseball as far as sports in my mind at this point because of this. Like I'm excited for baseball to come back, and I want it to come back, but I'm more excited about other sports that are going to come back at this point because this has turned me off of baseball. Just this whole entire that they can't agree on a contract, and it's been going on for over a month at this point.
Well, I don't know how much more I can say than I've already said the last couple weeks. I mean, you know my stance on it, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm pretty sure the distance between where I live and the distance between the two of us, I'm pretty sure every time you send me a text, you can hear me all the way across town. Right? It's explosive. The baseball, both sides, they messed this whole thing up right from the beginning. And then while they were trying to gauge the climate and see how things were going to go, they wasted time. Then I feel to some extent they quickly tried to put it together, but neither side could agree. We're in the middle of June. Time's ticking away. All the players want these games. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. You're in mid-June already. All right. You wanted to have the season completed by and the World Series done by November, correct? And they were worried about a second outbreak of COVID in the colder weather.
Yeah. So
there's no way. At this point, I would just tell them, look, it's time to start talking about the CBA and shut it down. I'm so turned off by it. You're coming up on what would be the halfway point of the season already, and you're still splitting hairs over a couple of percentage points in the grand scheme. I'm done with it.
So they do have. I want to step back and re-clarify. So the proposals that they did went from 82 games to 76 games to 72 games. And it went from 80% to 75% to 70% respectively. I was a little off when I said my 78 games, so I just want to make that clear.
So real quick though, what the commissioner did say, I mean, if he just says, hey, these are the amount of games we're going to play and that's it, that's what we originally negotiated, the players are stuck.
Yeah, it's gonna be like basically like your parent telling you what to do. Like you're gonna be so angry that like you don't want to do it, and it's gonna create even more animosity, and that's why he's saying that like we're gonna have baseball 100%. But this week is supposed to be I know we say it every week, but this week is supposed to be they're gonna come to some type of agreement by the end of this week. whether it be a 48 game schedule or it's going to be 70 game schedule or something along those lines. And because they have to they need 3 weeks of training camp. So if they want to start by the middle of July, which is what originally it was July 4th and it was July 11th, they don't want to go past July as far as when they're going to start it. And that's when the commissioner's like, we want to start mid-July. If he wants to do that, we need an agreement this week.
Yeah. If you've got 2 weeks left in June, if you can't get this done by the end of June, and I don't think they're going to have this done by the end of June, shut it down. Take your medicine. Take the outrage from the fans. Think about the CBA, because now you're in a real pickle, and each side needs to listen to each other, but then each side also needs to look internally, because guess what? If you and I don't have baseball, we've got potentially basketball, we've got hockey, and by the time that starts winding down, we're going to have football.
So yeah. I will say this, we will get baseball back though on July 3rd.
Tell.
The Independent American Association Baseball League is an independent baseball league that's going to, or excuse me, the American Association Baseball League is an independent baseball league that they've come out this week and said that they will start their season on July 3rd with limited fans. And they will play in 3 hub cities for the beginning of the start of the season. It'll be a 60-game regular season. It's kind of like, I didn't even know there was an independent league, but supposedly there is. You have a Minnesota team, you have a South Dakota team, you have a Winnipeg team, and you have another North Dakota team, or you have a North Dakota team, you have a Chicago team, and a Milwaukee team. Is all that they have listed here. I knew nothing about this. I guess it also says here they have a Kansas City team, a Texas team, a Nebraska team, an Iowa team, and another Texas team. So there's that kind of baseball if you really want to watch baseball. I don't know how good it is.
I'll take it in.
I've never seen it, never heard about it. I just came across the article when I was researching everything this week and thought that was pretty interesting. And they actually have an agreement with Major League Baseball that allows them to play, because usually like these independent leagues have hard times starting up or playing because they're trumped by the major league clubs. But they have an agreement which actually ends after this year or this season. So
there's a governing body for like all the affiliated minor leagues, so they're recognized. So and their agreement expires after the season. So here we go.
And then there's also another league. It's the Texas Collegiate League. I guess it's only a Texas-only league that's doing a 30-game season. It's 5 that will also begin on July 3rd. And they're allowing some of the minor league teams to play in the league.
Cool.
So we're getting some baseball back, but not the majors. It's going to be, lesser than that. But I wonder if because if baseball can't agree on anything, like ESPN will pick up the rights to view that, and they will broadcast that on ESPN and be like how would that affect negotiations? Like, you guys can't agree to anything, but these guys can play, and we're not watching baseball. Like, that would be really interesting to see how that goes over between the players and the owners. Is like these lesser teams are getting TV time and getting following over these major league clubs.
Well, I mean, I guess my question would be, like you said, like as far as getting it televised and whatnot, will ESPN take time from making all its docuseries now to cover some collegiate baseball?
I have no idea.
I wonder. Well, you know what it is? There's a lot of regional networks and whatnot that'll get some coverage. The minor league organizations that are going to host a couple of those collegiate leagues, you even got a couple of AAA clubs and some AA clubs. And AAA clubs usually kind of rotate through with their MLB roster. If a guy gets injured, he needs time to recover or whatnot, they'll send him down to AAA to rehab and whatnot, and then call him back up. So you might, some of the AA and AAA rosters actually have your up and coming guys, or some guys that might have gotten called up during the playoffs or whatnot. So there might be a couple names that if you're in that area, you might be familiar with. So, AAA baseball is about as close as you can get to watch a major league. So even if you got a few clubs being represented, it'd be cool to watch. I would think I'd watch it. I'd give it a run.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be very interesting to see how it plays out. I mean, if I was ESPN, I would pick it up and give you some type of sports. I mean, they're not giving you much now. They're just playing reruns of old things. Like they were playing the home run derby from 1999 earlier today, which was fun to watch. But at the same time, you want new and interesting stuff that you don't know. You don't know the ending to it already. But we're gonna move on
to something that gives me hope. The NHL, look at this. Training camps opening in just about a month. Yes. League.
Yeah, a little bit.
They came up with a deal and agreed to it.
And they're sticking to it.
Yes.
So they're coming back to training camp on July 10th. That's when their season's technically going to restart, with the hope that they will play their first games in the first week of August, last week of July. So they're right now in the phase 2 of their players protocol, return to play protocol. Again, they were doing a lot of phases where they're going to bring players back and then quarantine them and then get them in training camp so that everybody's healthy. They're physically monitoring. Like why can't other leagues follow this? You don't see them, crying, complaining because they're having to go through these different phases where they basically have to be quarantined for 2 weeks before they can even start doing anything. And then they got to come I don't know. I take the NHL and they're the players there and they're just we just want to play and we don't care about anything else. And I don't know. It's it's frustrating to see other leagues crying, complaining about these things, and then the NHL is kind of yeah, we're good. We're just gonna play.
And they are the least followed of the major 4 as far as fan bases and as far as money goes.
So it's a little bit frustrating that, but definitely good news. We're definitely getting out of. There's light at the end of the tunnel. We're seeing American sports to come back. So that's what we want. So the next topic we're gonna hit on to our random topics. This one
was interesting.
It was interesting, and I started dying laughing as I was reading it. So
I saw it. I saw it in the notes just before you go into it. I saw it in the notes. I actually had to read it twice just to make sure I wasn't misreading it.
I'll be honest. I wanted to put this on Chumps, but it was not anything that I could say was chump worthy. It was kind of just absolutely comical. So
it definitely falls under random topic.
Yes. So the Team USA boxer, Virginia Fuchs, I don't really know how to say her last name, but we're going to just go with that. She got tested positive for doping, but she never took any steroids the conventional way. So she had sexual relations with another male, and he was taking steroids, and it somehow, through what we all know, passed from him to her in her blood. And when she tested for this, for steroids, they found it in her blood, which ultimately caused her to fail the test, and they had to go through a new. They had to go through a more investigative way, so it was in her, it was in her urine test, and then they had to do a blood test, and they found that it wasn't in the blood test, but it was only in the urine test, and then found more information about it. And so I guess be careful. That's all I can say.
Well, even she said, what did she say in the article? She was like, a lesson learned.
How, I honestly, I would hate to be the male in this story. Could
If
you
she's a
imagine,
boxer, she probably beat the crap out of him.
like she's an Olympic boxer that was supposed to be competing in the Tokyo Games this year,
Yeah.
and like got flagged for it, so she wasn't going to compete. Like, and you're the reason for that. Like, man, I
This
do
dude's
not
got a
want to be
black
in that
eye. I'm
position.
telling you, he got a black
Like,
eye at least.
like I would literally like I would be hiding in my room, lock my door, and like be scared. Like you watch some of the video of this girl box, like she's legit, and it's like you almost cost her a chance to compete in the Olympics.
And I mean, it's
And
fortunate that the Olympics got pushed back to next year because now she's able to train for it.
correct, and she's able to do all and participate in it, and she's not
Yes.
like she's a young boxer. She's 32 years old, so yeah, it's a if anybody out there really wants to read the story, let one of us know. I'll definitely send you
We'll
the
put the
link
link
to
out
it,
there. Yeah.
or you can Google it yourself. But
We can put it on Twitter.
it's a fun read, and it's pretty hilarious. I found it in USA Today or Fox News, and I literally read it, and I could not stop laughing the entire time because
So
it's just an off the ball kind of story.
For all the years that I followed sports, in all the years that you followed sports, I have to be honest in saying that's the first time I've seen that for that reason. Ever.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah,
That is a new one.
That's a new one.
When you say that you've heard everything, there's still more that you can hear. Because I thought I heard everything, but I definitely
that one takes it,
pal. So
What else you
the La Liga and Italian Serie A soccer or aka football came back this week, which was
Wonderful.
good to see. I didn't really watch any of the games. I was kind of busy with other things. But they came back. I know I believe Barcelona or Real Madrid was playing earlier today, and they were winning like 3-0, which is not surprising because they're the powerhouse of the league. Yeah, Real Madrid and Barcelona are the powerhouse of La Liga. But that's good that we're seeing a lot more sports coming back. I don't know. I tried to search to see if I could watch any of them, but I don't think they were broadcasted over here. You had to have like the international sports channel to get it, or go to Fubo TV to stream it. So and I'm not gonna pay for that.
I'll tell you what. If any of our fans want to donate to the show, and let the powers that be know they want to donate money to the show so that we can watch these other sports. If they want to foot the bill for Fubo TV and all that every month, I'll gladly accept that. We'll report on whatever you want to hear.
Oh, absolutely. If you guys want us to report on soccer, I don't mind watching soccer. I can watch soccer all day long. Like when the World Cup comes on, I'm glued to the TV. It's actually kind of bad. The last World Cup that we had, that the U.S. was in it, I was down in Center City, Philadelphia, at the bar watching every single game on the TV because I at that time had nothing else to do with my life. So
seriously, if our fans want to chip in some money for that, I'll report on cricket if they really want to know. I will watch cricket. Okay, I have no problem with that whatsoever.
Yeah. So this is not necessarily into the cricket thing, but yeah, if you want to watch cricket, go ahead. More power.
Hey, if they're going to pay for it, I feel obligated to throw that out there.
I don't understand anything that has to do with cricket, so
we'll learn.
Yeah, it's all on you. I'll watch rugby. You can watch cricket. We'll take turns.
We'll split it.
What
you got?
The next thing on here was the Michael Jordan's basketball shoes from the flu game, aka.
I'm sorry.
AKA.
Yeah, that's why I started laughing.
AKA the food poisoning game.
Yeah.
They were sold again this week, and they sold for I believe $6,000. In 2013, they were sold for $104,765.
I'm sorry.
And they were auctioned off this week. So
they originally sold for over $100,000, and this time they sold for $6,000.
Correct.
So is it because of? Go ahead.
Well, I guess a lot of the Last Dance played into it, but
you think are there any pizza stains on the sneakers? Oh God,
I don't know.
Oh man.
But there's a lot of memorabilia. I guess Michael Jordan was auctioning off, or there was a lot of memorabilia of Jordans that were auctioned off. That was the big item that, it granted $600,000 at the auction. And what else? They had 2 pairs of shoes worn in different sports. They had in different parts of his career. They had other stuff in here that, like game worn Team USA Converse sneakers for the '84 Olympics. Let's see what else. They had an autographed Air Jordan ones worn during his '85 season.
Yeah, I
That went
see
for
that.
560,000. I think these are all just things that were auctioned off and got donated to charity. He had a Dream Team jersey price of $216,000 for a Michael Jordan Dream Team jersey. His baseball cleats that we wore during the '94 season, they went for $93,000. You could tell that they were very a hot item compared to the rest of them. So
It was like, the other thing he did.
yeah, that's a lot of money to be shelling out for these things. I'm just amazed by how much money people pay for this stuff.
The reason I asked about the shoes originally, because we're talking about it, and before I could bring up the link for the site, your notes say MJ shoes sold for $6,000. So that's why I said, wait a minute, they had sold previously for $100,000 and now they sold for $6,000. You said, yeah, you put $6,000, not $600,000.
Oh,
now it makes
my
more
bad.
sense. Because I was puzzled for a second. I'm like, so you paid $100,000 for a pair of Jordan sneakers, and then when you put them out there, you only paid $6,000. You know, something's wrong.
I was in the middle of a break for my lab that I had this weekend, and I was writing it really quickly, so I apologize.
Okay. I hope you did it right on the lab and not made that kind of mistake.
No, I did not. I did not make that kind of mistake. I did do really well on the lab. I did not make that mistake.
And what do we got here?
The last thing I wanted to just touch on, I wanted to do this last week. It was actually a story from last week, but Conor McGregor retired for the third time.
We're done.
Yeah. I don't think
pretty
it's
much even what Dana White had to say.
I don't think, no one really cares. He hasn't boxed or not boxed. He hasn't fought in a long time. He's always in the media talking trash, and then nothing comes about it. He's kind of like the quote unquote bad boy of UFC. And I think he'll come back if they pay him the right amount of money. He'll come back. I think this is just all a media stunt at this point. And I think we talked about it last week off air and kind of agreed on the same thing. So just putting it out there, Conor McGregor retired for the third time.
Bye-bye. See ya. All right, everybody. And it is that time for the favorite part of the show. You know what it's time for.
It's time for Chips Chumps. Bad plays, bad players, awful calls, poor sportsmanship. The worst of the week with Chips Chumps.
All right, guys. Now we're going to move on. We didn't do it last week, but I came back this week with a fury. We're going to do the Chips Chumps. You heard the intro. So we're going to start out number 5. So this goes to Astros bench coach Alex Corra, who, for many of you who don't know, he took the responsibility for the sign-stealing role of the Astros. He came out and he spoke this week saying that it was not a 2-man operation and that he shouldn't take a lot of the blame. Everybody had forgotten about this. Nobody was concerned about your season-long suspension, the fact that you did all the sign stealing. Everyone was focused on what else is going on with the MLB. And you have to open your mouth. How dumb are you? Seriously. Just take your suspension, go away. No one wants to hear from you. And don't say a word. Accept it. It happened. Move on. Moron. Number 4. So this one goes to one of the guys that I honestly, he's a head case, and there's no other way to put it. Antonio Brown.
Sorry.
He pleaded no contest on Friday to a felony burglary charge. If you haven't followed Antonio Brown, just Google his name. There's a million different stories out there about him. He's got so much drama, and it's honestly it's too long of a list for me to go over in the amount of time that I have for this segment. So we're just going to say that Antonio Brown, just for being Antonio Brown, he won't face any jail time. I think he should. But he pleaded no contest for an incident with a moving truck driver where he basically beat him up outside of his home and threw a rock at him because the guy asked for more money, or asked for the rest of the money that Antonio Brown wasn't going to pay him, or something along those lines. And he basically went off on him, and through that they have him a mandatory psych evaluation they has to go through. He has to go through 13-week anger management program. He's on 2 years probation and 100 hours of community service. He got off light, honestly. Like, he's a head case. Everything that he does is drama, and it's I can't say anymore. Moron. Number 3. So this one I have to give a shout out to Don. He actually pushed this one up to me. So there is a NASCAR driver who quit because the NASCAR decided that they were going to ban the Confederate flag at races. But if you're going to make a statement, you would think that you would have a, somewhat of a decent track record with the NASCAR. No, Ray I'm probably butchering his name, Ciccarelli.
Probably like Ciccarelli.
Ciccarelli, sure. NASCAR had to basically Google him to find out who this guy was. So that tells you how much NASCAR actually knew about this guy. He's never won a race. He promptly quit the sport, basically stating all this stuff about them banning the Confederation flag. Nobody cares. Really, nobody cares about you at all. Like, especially when you have 0 wins and basically haven't really done much in your career with NASCAR. And for all what NASCAR is, even the NASCAR officials have to go out and say, we had to Google you to find out who you were, or who the hell you were. That's bad. That's really, really bad. Who cares? Shut up. If you want to quit, quit. But just don't make a big thing about it, because honestly, it means nothing when you say this. Moron. Number 2. So this has to deal with my frustration that I did earlier in the show. I'm giving this to Kyrie Irving because of his antics about trying to get this return to the season to not happen, and talking about using that he doesn't want to be in a bubble. You agreed on something. You're not a player. You signed in this agreement. It'll behoove you guys better to go out there and do something normal and show off your talents and support whatever you want to support that way, and deal with the fact that you might have to be in a bubble for 2 months. It's not the end of the world. Like, life goes on. You should be focused on basketball anyways, not, I don't know, partying and other things. Like, support your personal beliefs on the court and doing other things. Like, you don't necessarily have to not play to do that. So Kyrie Irving, I'm sorry, not really. Moron. Number 1. So this one is a little bit of a shocker for me, at least when I read it. So Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's son, Adam, was arrested for allegedly stabbing his neighbor multiple times. He was booked for assault with a deadly weapon. They didn't really say any content to the story as to why he did it or anything like that. They just said the victim has non-life-threatening injuries, and that he was released on $25,000 bond, which $25,000 to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is probably like chump change at this point. Let's be honest. Why in the world would you stab anybody? That's the I don't care how much someone offends you or doesn't like you. Yell, scream at them. Don't physically get all in an altercation with them. If I can say anything, that violence leads to nothing. You obviously get arrested and now are booked on assault with a deadly weapon, which is, jail time. So nothing should ever come to that. That's just stupid, idiotic, moron. All right, so that's it for this week's The Chip Chumps. Let me know how you guys agreed, disagreed, who I left off the list. If there's anything that you guys wanted me to add or change up about the segment, I'd appreciate it. You can, comment. I'm going to post it up on our Twitter and our Discord and then you guys can respond and quote it or tell me that I'm an idiot and I don't know what I'm talking about from there.
All right. A couple things on the list for this week. Number one, I should say number three. Thanks for giving me props for that, but I actually I got that from my wife. She's taking participation in what we do here and helping me in small ways. So I want to recognize my wifey for throwing that one out there, and that was definitely a good addition to the list. And I am laughing. Did you see in the article like some of the blowback that he got from athletes in different sports and whatnot? It was hysterical. It was
it's funny.
hysterical.
It's absolutely funny. Like nobody really cares. Nobody really cares. But it
was the way they went after it. And I want to correct pronunciation. I believe it's Ciccarelli. How to say his name? Ciccarelli. I want to say that right. So here you are. And the whole thing is he's not in the Cup Series. He's a Truck Series driver who never won a race, which that made it funny enough when I read it. But as I was going on, our own Leonard Fournette, right here in our own backyard, from his Twitter says 0 wins. He should have been quit.
You should have quit. Yeah, like you're that bad.
Quit. And let me see here.
I mean, you're worse than the Knicks at this point.
I'm trying. There's another one here. Another one here from another Twitter account. It says it's official. He's insulted more races than he's won. It's like, really? But I think my favorite one that I saw was announcing that he quit, or that he's quitting over this. And then the Twitter feed says NASCAR is desperately seeking another driver to regularly finish 28th. There's only 28 positions in the Truck Series.
Yes,
it was great. So as I kept reading it, I was laughing, and then my wife goes, "Did you see the reply from NASCAR?" I'm like, NASCAR actually responded to him, and that's where I see from NASCAR, we actually had to Google who you were, and I lost it.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. At that point, you tuck your tail between your legs and walk out.
Yeah, don't say anything else at that moment. Just shh.
Yes.
So, yeah, that was a good list this week. Unfortunately, the one with Kareem's son, I scratched my head on that one. The article didn't elaborate much on it, but why?
Yeah, you know, I don't see, like, I can see if it's self-defense, like that's different, but this is everything that indicated in the article was that it wasn't self-defense. Like you can't do that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm going to wait, as I always do, for more information to come out. I'm not one to rush to conclusions or judgment on these things, but it's it's bad. It's bad enough. Yeah. You don't need that. So there we go. But let's go ahead and hit the buzzer here.
It's the final buzzer. The last moments of the show.
Okay, here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, everybody, you heard it. Here we are at the final buzzer. And before we go on with the closing for the week, Chip, what movie are we watching this week?
So with everything that's going on, I wanted to save this movie for when we started back with football, but I just couldn't not put it in there. So the movie of the week is Remember the Titans, and I'm going to do a little bit differently. I'm going to do a little bit differently. Instead of me explaining the movie and everything like that, I'm going to give you a scene and a little bit of a quote from the movie that I think is very prominent. This is probably my top 1 or 2 favorite movie of all time, sport movie of all time. I could probably recite every line to the movie at this point because I've watched it so many times. But Remember the Titans is a very well done, true film. It's got Denzel Washington in it, and it's a lot about segregation and bringing sports together in the 70s at a time when it was at its height of turmoil. And one of the major quotes is they're at this training camp where they went to Gettysburg College at the time, and they're wake up at like 4 a.m. in the morning or 5 a.m. in the morning, and they have to run. And he basically runs to battlefield of the Battle of Gettysburg. And all you see in the scene is Denzel Washington standing there in front of all the graves, and he quotes and he goes, "If we don't come together right now on this hallowed ground, we too will be destroyed, just like they were. I don't care if you like each other or not, but you will respect each other." And everyone's exhausted in the scene, and you see all of them, and it's one of those hit home moments. Like, basically, we need to come together and stop keeping ourselves apart because of other things going on. And it really brings the team together, and the movie goes on from there. But I definitely suggest, if you haven't seen it, it's a really good movie. If you've seen it, watch it again, because it's that awesome of a movie, and that powerful.
I would just say alone, the quote that you picked out of it in the times we're in right now is a very powerful quote.
Yeah, I thought that was it was definitely justified, and that's what tipped the scale was with this movie, because of what's going on.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's another one in the books, and we continue to build upon what we're doing here. And Twitter, we still continue to have activity and whatnot, so we're happy for everybody that's been listening. We would like to say, send us a shout out. Let your friends, family, coworkers, anybody that likes sports, give them the website address. Let them know the name of the show. We'd like to build our listener base and whatnot. Chip and I have discussed some things off air about how we want to build upon the channel based on the listeners that we're getting. Our network, on occasion, for some of their other podcasts, will do a live stream, and we've discussed that. I think that would be an awesome thing to do, where we could actually interact with our audience during our discussions and whatnot. But we need to build that listener base first. So we would like to thank all of you who have been loyally following us since the get-go on this, or I would say following us in general. We appreciate it, and we want to continue to build and get that support up. Chip, anything else to add to that?
No, not that, but I do have to ask you a question, Don. I was talking to a mutual friend this week, and he was giving me a lot of slack about it, and I'm pretty sure you can guess who it is. So I have to ask you, have you seen any of the episodes of The Last Dance yet?
No. And I know exactly who it is.
All right. So everybody out in the world, my homework for you is to get on Don's case to watch The Last Dance. As a sports person, he should have seen this. There is not many people that I know that love sports that haven't seen at least one episode. So, Don, my homework for you this week is to watch one episode of The Last Dance. Just one. I'm not saying watch the whole thing.
When I see you at work tomorrow, we're going to have a discussion about this.
So, but I appreciate all the feedback from everybody, and keep it coming.
Awesome. All right, man. With that being said, that's a wrap. We appreciate all for listening. We're out.
You've been listening to Sportscasters Anonymous. Your opinion may differ, but that doesn't mean you're right. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week. We hope you were intrigued or at least entertained. You can find the podcast on all the major networks. Find us on Discord and Patreon at Random Chatter. Hook up on the website at randomchatter.com and browse through the merchandise at randomchatter.com/store. We'll see you next time. This is Sportscasters Anonymous. Signing off.